California.
Yeah, so I feel like last weekend, I don't want to say the spot because I want to make sure it stays low key. But dude, that is like the best spot to go because it's like in between that final session and the semi session. It's not around the arena, so like you're kind of away from everybody.
Yeah, that's
But
usually where I stay actually.
oh
You know,
really?
yeah, that's where I usually stay. And actually this year, because I did have a newborn, I had a son that was born February 1st. And my other son, he's less than 2 years old. He'll be two in June 1st. So, you know, um, we weren't able to come up. And usually I would come up with my wife, my daughter, and we'd stay at the hotel and eat down there, walk to the arena.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been like that for a while now. Even before I met my wife, I was doing it, at that same hotel. I just like it. It's pretty cool.
Have you? I don't know if this gives it away. I don't really want to give it away, but have you heard about the ghost?
Yes, I
Did you
heard
see
about.
any
I didn't know
ghosts?
about that. I stayed there for years, and then daughter, I think my daughter told me it was haunted or something, or maybe my wife found it or stumbled on it on like Google or something, and we read about it and we laughed.
You don't? Do you mess with ghosts?
Uh, well, you know, we had this, the previous house that we lived in, there was some weird stuff that happened. We would be downstairs, like me and my wife be watching TV, and no one would be upstairs, and all of a sudden we hear like a boom, like something fell. Like that happened like a bunch of times. And then um, one time I came home and no one was home. It was during the day, and then a door slammed upstairs. And I was like, well, maybe there's some type of draft or something, and something had, and there was nothing. So it was kind of weird. I don't know. And it was just me. It was she heard things like, yeah.
Yeah. Is this an old house or was it an old house?
I don't know how old it was. Maybe a little bit older, like maybe like 70s, 80s, maybe it built in the 80s or something.
Yeah, there could have been like an earthquake and maybe it's a little slanted or
Yeah, I
something.
don't know.
Things
It
fall
was
over.
weird, but it didn't bother me, but I just laughed about it. It was weird stuff, but
Yeah.
who knows?
It's funny like, how tough we are sometimes with wrestling and then it's like we get supernatural and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't mess around with that. I don't
Yeah.
uh-uh. What's funny though is this is maybe a weird segue, but like I feel like did you hear anything about the controversy with the pigtails at all at the state
There's
tournament?
always a controversy with pigtails with Buchanan. Like
Well,
always,
it just
all these
yeah.
like people always complaining. I don't pay too much attention to it, but I remember a few years ago they had like a bunch of pigtails, and they were able to rack up some decent points. And then I saw something this year again. Fill me in on what the so I saw something on California Wrestler, but I didn't
Yeah.
read it.
So I know that post that you're talking about, somebody had screenshotted and posted. If you looked at the points from that pigtail round and then subtracted it from the total round, it's like a completely different team score in that top five.
Wow.
But they told us in the coaches meeting that they were only going to count advancement points and they're not going to count any bonus. Because if you give like a top seeded guy a pigtail and
Yeah, of
it's like
course.
somebody from, the 5 or 6 from like a different sector or
Yeah,
whatever, you know what I
it's gonna
mean?
be a bonus. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're giving them a major attack, a pin, and then that obviously stacks up over time. And the way that the team score in the top five is getting to be so competitive, it's like people are going to be looking at those little details even more. So yeah, they said that at the coaches meeting, hey, we're not going to count any bonus points.
Mhm.
It's going to be in there the first round, and then we're going to pull them out. So that is the true team score with only counting advancement points after that pigtail round. Um, but I don't know. I feel like there's a way where you could almost set it up to where the top 16 seeds even don't have pigtails. If you really want to make it,
Yeah.
like take away that argument.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see it. Um, I don't know. I've never seen it in a tournament. So I just, I don't know.
I mean, almost just like, hey, like it's part of the competition. Just throw them
Yeah.
in there randomly. I think it's only when, like what you said, if the
So
same team gets
so
a
do you know
pigtail.
what was the differential between, Buchanan, Poway? Bosco, you know what I mean? Like, how many more did Buchanan have the most pigtail matches?
Oh, you know what? Let me see.
And
I
mean,
haven't even looked.
we had a few. I mean, they had a few pigtails, I think.
I think Bessemer might have had one. Um, I see Bessemer so far. Maybe one or
Rockford,
two. Cantino might have had one.
yeah. There were a bunch of pigtails, aren't there? Like there was
Yeah,
pretty
Paul. Yeah, I mean, there's what? There's a 40-man bracket. It's a 40 people in a 32-man bracket. So, um, I'm not great at math off the top of my
much.
head,
Yeah.
but there's maybe 8 pigtails or something like that per
I
weight.
mean, really, what I think, if we're going to talk about like with Buchanan, it's kind of when you think about it, who actually, what happened there was really, um, not Paul Reese, Paris Reese, I'm sorry, at
Yeah.
126, coming through and knocking off Ronnie Ramirez, out of nowhere and getting that.
Thunder Lewis, and then Ronnie Ramirez, and then
Yeah,
Slater. I mean, that's
yeah.
that's a heck of a
I mean,
run.
Thunder, him and Thunder have kind of gone back and forth a little bit. It
Yeah.
was, Thunder had just actually dominated him in the Masters finals, which was, for me, I didn't make it up there until Friday. And then I saw that Paris beat him 10-0. That was pretty shocking to me. I thought Thunder, I didn't see that coming. I thought it'd be closer because
Yeah.
Thunder did really dominate him in the Masters final. But, Paris just got hot at the right time. And, he's really somebody you have to know how to wrestle because he is really dangerous. He's very dangerous and he's specializes in scrambling and funk and wrestling when you're in on his leg, especially if you shoot like a high C. And that's just the way he's been. He's a dangerous wrestler. He will, I mean, I remember watching, I think last year against Clovis West, had Jeff Lopez bumped up to wrestle him the duel, and I think he cradled Jeff and pinned Jeff. Jeff is a great wrestler, really, really good.
Yeah.
And he was able to catch Jeff in a cradle, similar position when it was a tripod position. Same thing that happened with Ronnie Ramirez. So it was crazy. I kind of had in my mind when I knew that they were going to wrestle, I had visions in my mind. Just because he probably doesn't see him much, but hasn't wrestled him much. He's from down south.
Yeah.
He doesn't know Paris, and I just kind of had a feeling something might happen like that. And when you think about that, with the score ended up being, it was about 7.5 points or 7 points. I mean, that right there, with Paris winning and then able to beat Slater Hicks in the semis and get all those bonus points for becoming a state finalist. I mean,
That's big.
that was huge,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're not anticipating that, especially at that 126. I mean, that was, you know, you could argue between that and 160, 175, the two toughest weights by far in the whole state tournament between everyone,
Yeah, for
71
sure.
guys at 126. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of depth, and I think it's interesting. Like you said, Paris had a great performance, and it was almost like this perfect storm. Like he had a great performance, and then you look at who wasn't there for St. John Bosco, and you could say
Mhm.
even if he was there, maybe he wrestles and maybe he makes the
Oh,
finals and
Saki,
things are a little
yeah,
bit different. Yeah, um,
yeah.
but man, like it was honestly fun as a fan,
It was
from a
crazy.
fan
It was,
perspective.
yeah, I agree. Honestly, I was looking at it and it's probably the best state tournament that, and I've been here since 2009, um, that I've ever been to as far as the team race. That the thing's usually wrapped up, after that semifinal match. It's usually like somebody's running away with it, and this was you had 3 or 4 teams. It was crazy, and I think all those teams can take something from it, right? So Bosco, even though I know it killed Ruben, to get fourth. I mean, he
Yeah,
placed 13 out of 14 weights. I mean, that's unbelievable, unbelievable.
it's a
And
record.
if Sahakian's there, that's 14 out of 14, and he got fourth, which is nuts.
Well, 14 out of 14, and then they probably win the team title. or
Yeah,
it's very close.
yeah, but to have 13 placers and not, win a team title
To get fourth and with
out of
13
control.
placers.
And then, Clovis High, with Adam and Gabe, I mean, they 9 placers,
Yeah.
where they had, was it 3 finalists? Was it three? Mark, yeah, there was 3 finalists, uh, 9 placers, I mean, they did amazing and they got fifth. It was like,
Yeah.
9 placers, not too long ago, you're winning, you're running away with it. You're winning a championship. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, Poway came back and did great, defending off of that epic, record breaking year last year. They came back and, they were right there, and it ended up coming down to Rockland Zinkin versus Edwin
Man,
Sierra.
I love that match because I was doing math in my head. I'm like, okay, Poway needs to win both of them. I think
Mhm.
Buchanan just needed to win one. So I think Rockland had to have known, like, all right, I'm going to be the guy to go take it right now.
Well,
And the way
Rockland's,
that he came out, just scrappy and aggressive, just trying, like,
yeah,
hey, I'm going to go take it.
yeah, Rockland is, I think, the opposite of what most of us would be in that situation, right? He actually likes that type of pressure.
Yeah.
He gets excited for that type of pressure. And, his father, Nick, and I didn't know this till later, when Nick and I talked the next day, he went to Rockland and said, "Hey, son, they need you to win this. This is it. If you win, you guys will win the team title. And if you lose, you guys are not going to win the team title." Something to that effect.
Yeah.
Which normally would, make most people, just want to cry. But Rockland actually embraced it. You saw him run out of there like it was on fire.
Man on a mission.
Yeah, and I rewatched that match on Sunday because I rewatched some of the matches, and it was amazing because he Sierra just, I don't know what happened. That takedown happened,
But
and
he fought though. Like I don't think he rolled over. Like it seemed like Rockland was trying to overwhelm him, and Sierra kind of tried to hold his ground as much as he could.
I don't know. I was looking at something different. I
All
saw
right, I only looked at it in person. I haven't read. Maybe I'll rewatch it. Maybe
I
see
don't
something
know,
different.
he maybe, and this is, kind of inside baseball, but me talking to Nick and some of the friends at the Zinkins, we're real close. I said to, and I said, this is a different Rockland that Sierra is going to feel.
Yeah,
Last year, Rockland was much more undersized. He's a little bit of a late bloomer. Sierra had been competing at that with Carrillo and Cortez, brother. I mean, he had been at a higher weight with Ronnie Ramirez. Those are the guys he was always competing with.
yeah,
And he cut down to get to, I believe it was 115 last year. And he beat Rockland. And when they wrestled at Doc B. And I think, he kind of felt like, hey, I think he felt something different this year. This was a different
yeah,
Rockland developed much more physically. You could see his body is developed. He's coming into his own. And I just felt personally, I felt like he was going to have a little too much for Sierra, too much offense, too much speed. And Rockland had confidence this year.
yeah.
And that was kind of how I thought it was going to play out, but you just never know what's going to happen. But yeah, that was a great match and an incredible tournament. I mean, you can't say enough about Poway. I mean, they beat him in the duel, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's so tight, so close. I mean, both teams were great. I mean, really, you had 5 phenomenal teams in that tournament.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of I'm gonna look at the team scores again. I feel like it's clear clear top five. I mean, there's quite a big gap, after fifth between Clovis and Clovis North. I thought Clovis North had a good tournament. Fountain Valley had a great
Clovis
tournament
North,
too.
Clovis North is coming on. They've got,
Yeah,
obviously they're going to lose Maestas and Del Bosco brothers, so they're losing some, but they'll return
I
Roach.
think the Sinfels too, right? Aren't the
Yeah,
Sinfels
Sinfeld.
seniors?
Yeah, but they've got a good young feeder group coming in. Uh, a few of them are in my club that also are going to be going to, they're at Granite Ridge right now, and they're going to be feeding into Clovis North. So they have a bright future ahead. They got Tyler Sweet, over at
Yeah.
106, he placed, I believe was fifth. Jonathan Rocha, he's coming back next year, and both the guys at 190 are seniors, so they're gone. So he'll probably be a favorite to be number one in the state next year if he's at 190. And they got a few other kids as well. There's a kid that I at my club, his name's Philip Hernandez. He's an eighth grader. He plays second at Super 32 this year in middle school, and he's going to be a star. He's going to be a name that everybody knows about, and he's actually coming in to wrestle there with Gabe Flores over at North, and he's going to be somebody you guys are going to be hearing about next year. He's probably be either a 15 or a 20 pounder, probably a 20 pounder.
When you look at all these teams, like I think about Esperanza, I think about Clovis North, I think about Clovis, I think about all these teams, dude. You have to have freshmen coming in that are able to compete right away.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I've you kind of see every now and then, but I feel like it's more common now than ever. Where you do have guys that come in and yeah, they can be a state placer or even a state champ right away. As a club coach and you're developing not just the high school guys, but also the youth, especially in that transition period where they're going from middle school, they're kind of growing into their body a little bit. Now they're in high school. How is that playing any kind of factor when you're talking about development? And do you feel like that kind of puts on maybe any kind of pressure with some kids and how they handle that?
Which part? As far as being able to come in and compete as a ninth
Being
grader?
able to come in and compete and like, the
I think
pressure
it's
sometimes
a
of
lot
that
of
as
these kids are, well, um, yeah, I mean, those five programs that you see, they're all being fed by strong club teams.
yeah,
Some of them have, like where we live, we have a few different really, good clubs. And they have like for Clovis, Clovis High, Buchanan, Clovis North, there's a culture there because of the kids wrestling here in elementary school. They've got kids wrestling, and it's like a big deal where we have this thing called the districts, and everyone's really excited. And it's kind of like a prestigious thing for kids to win the districts, and
yeah,
so there's really strong wrestling throughout all the elementary schools in the Clovis districts, and they all feed into the middle schools, and then we have some good clubs in town that are developing kids year round. And then those schools also have good clubs of their own. Like Buchanan has Empire, Clovis has Winter Circle, and they develop their kids as well. Like my daughter, she does wrestling over at Alta.
yeah,
She's in the Buchanan, and in middle school for their gym class for their PE, it's all wrestlers. It's wrestling PE. So all of her teammates they set their schedules up so that they're all in the same PE class. So they're actually sometimes they're drilling. A lot of times they're lifting weights, and doing that in PE. And I don't think a lot of places will do that. And then obviously do it in the high school as well. But that's starting in middle school.
yeah,
So there's a real culture there. And then, obviously look at Bosco, Ruben, they've got the Monster Garage. Um, they're these kids are being grown. They're not just coming out of nowhere, they're not just getting plucked out of the sky. They're competing in Tulsa. They're competing at VAC duels. So many of the kids that you're seeing, like a Sammy Sanchez, I mean, he's already a world champion, before he even got into high school. And
yeah,
him and his dad, Gabe, we had a team that took second at VAC duels in middle school. Phenomenal team, had every one of those kids that a lot of the kids now that you're seeing, they were on our team. Rockland, Travis Grace, Joseph Toscano, all the way through Mason Altaveras, all on that team when we were in middle school, and Sammy. And, so by the time they get to ninth grade, I mean, they're ready to go. They're ready
yeah.
to go, and it starts young, through the development, the different clubs. Poway's got great clubs and structure. And the thing about Pally, it looks like they have a lot of their former wrestlers will come back and like give back to the program and stuff. So they've got,
Yeah, I mean, they
great
do a really
culture.
good job keeping track of their alumni.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really, you can tell Coach Myers, he's a great guy too. I went down there a couple of years ago when they did a camp in Wisconsin and got to talk to him. I didn't realize he wrestled at Minnesota.
Mhm.
And great guy. Loved hanging out with him. And yeah, they've got tremendous club, and that's what it's about. The youth. I mean, they're, you're only as strong as your youth, as your youth clubs. And I know, like, I think there was another post on the California Wrestler where they were complaining about, well, look at this 5 teams now that are dominating and basically like arguing for divisions and saying how it's not this and that. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
build your youth clubs,
Yeah.
strong youth club. More D1 guys need to, when they come back to California, get involved in youth wrestling, Division I guys that are going to teach the kids proper wrestling and on the youth level. And other places will get developed, but I don't know why there would be these teams are dominating because of their strong clubs and their great coaching in high school and their structure. And I mean, the kids
And you can build it. I mean, it's like it's just like, I don't think that's the argument is necessarily coming from coaches. I think it's coming from parents, it's coming
yeah,
from people that are not maybe directly involved in the sport anymore. And then there's also people that maybe, don't live in this state, or don't quite, people have dissenting
yeah,
opinions, and I think that's okay. I think if a coach said that, it'd be like, dude, build it yourself then. Like,
yeah,
just build it then. And I think, just saying, oh, just build it. How are you willing to put in the time? Like, are you willing to go out and try to recruit other good coaches to come in and help? Because I mean, that's at Frontier, that's what we're doing. We're trying to recruit good coaches. We're trying to develop our own infrastructure. You look at other teams that are on here, like Pittman has Vasky Bros, like Cody and his brothers, like they put a bunch of time in developing their youth program.
yeah,
Fountain Valley, Orange County Regional Training Center. I have my brother-in-law goes down there a few times a week, in the off season to go and get some workouts with those guys. Like they're building it. It's
yeah,
just, it takes time and a little bit of
yeah.
luck. And then, you build on it over the years too.
And look at the Birmingham crew, like the Armenian crew down there. Those guys are, all of a sudden, boom, they're all, obviously, I think that, they maybe have a freestyle focus as far as
Yeah.
like, I mean, but I mean, man, what they placed this year? That maybe 4th
10th. Yeah. They had, I think
place,
they just had
or
3.
just 3. It was Slava. They had Henry.
Teresian.
Okay, so those
He was
3.
unseated, but he's pretty good.
Yeah,
He's pretty good.
yeah. And I'm seeing like so many Division I kids now going to great schools. I mean, if you look at like on the California on the rankings and stuff, and they highlight, Michael Cho will highlight the schools that they're committed to and stuff. I mean, it's crazy now. I remember
And it's a broad
it
range.
wasn't like that. Yeah, but you're seeing Big Ten,
Big
ACC.
Ten,
Yeah,
West Point,
yeah, West.
Cornell.
Yep. Oh yeah. So
It's pretty cool, man.
back to the team race though. Yeah, I mean Gilroy with what five champs, right? Were there no 5 play?
Yeah, 5 champs. I think
5
that's a
champs.
record too.
Yeah.
5 champs.
So 5 champs and they were almost there, yeah.
Cepeda needed I mean, you can argue it could have gone a million different ways, but if Cepeda would have got that bonus, they would have tied it, if he got a
Yeah.
major. But Raby was tough, man.
Race
From Anderson.
well, what was crazy was I remember thinking like, no, I thought several times these guys are going to win it. I'm looking at it now and like like the semis, I was looking at it and I'm like, DC's going to win this thing. And I was thinking in my mind, somehow I'm looking at him like, he's going to have like 6 finals because like Travis Grace was winning that match. He's winning that match 4-0 deep in the 3rd. And I'm like, DC's going to have 6 finalists. Like, I go, he's finally going to do it. And people are like, no, there's no way. I'm like, bro, what do you mean? He's gonna have 6 finalists. He's got another one. And they ended up, Travis ended up getting pinned, and that was crazy. He had
Yeah.
he's winning 4-0, right? Short time. Carini's getting a takedown, and he's fighting the takedown. He reaches back and grabs his leg and has like an ankle pass, trying to do an ankle pass. And it's like, Travis, let go of the leg, man. Give up the takedown. You're still up by 1. And he just kind of held the leg there and just right on the edge of the mat too, and gave up a pin. I was like, oh my God. I'm buddies with DC,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, I felt bad. I was like, you know, but
But every year they always have the potential, I feel like, to do it. Like
yeah,
they always have a lot of talent.
yeah,
I think I wonder who's coming in next year for them.
yeah, they're losing a lot. They're
A
losing a
lot
lot.
of points off the board.
Yeah, they've got a
Is a
talented ninth grader, Max. I can't remember his last name. Very good, very tough kid. He's going to be real good. But obviously they're losing the Cortez boys. They're losing Sauce.
Zapata.
They're Ty Ice isn't going to be there. He's going to be shipping over to Nebraska to the Cornhuskers.
Yeah.
Um,
You got the Graces coming back.
yeah, Grace is back. Uh,
Garcia, Mendoza.
Moses,
Mendoza, I think is gonna be
Moses,
he's a
yeah,
junior right
Moses,
now, right?
yeah, Moses is back. Grace, yeah, but this was kind of the year, you know. And
That's
if
life,
they
man.
had
That
Kobe
happens.
Earl stay there, who knows what could have happened. Kobe,
Gosh.
Kobe ended up leaving a couple of years ago, but they were right there, man. They had a hell of a year. Um, yeah, and then Poway once again, right there. It was an incredible team race. Can't believe Ruben had 13 placers and then took fifth.
They're good.
Fourth,
They're
yeah.
good. And they
And then
have
I was
like
looking at it, they return like a lot. They return a lot. Like I think
yeah.
they're losing Antonio. Obviously, Sihakian is not going to be there. He's gone. But outside of that, they have like that. EC Fernandez is very good. He's a freshman.
Freshman at 175
Yeah,
placer. That's a big deal.
he's really good.
Grajeda comes back.
Yeah, Carrillo's back, and then plus you lose Ronnie, you lose Cortez, so that kind of opens up a little bit. Antonio Rodriguez will be back in that weight as well, so it's still going to be tough, but
It's fun, man. And I think this is cool too. We talk about it's not Dapper Dan anymore. But dude, we got California has 4 guys going to that. This would be a good Al Fontes question, but I wonder what's the most we've ever sent from California.
I wouldn't know that, but
What is cool though, are you gonna go out there again?
I'm not going to go this year. I can't.
Okay.
I wanted to go because, man, to me it's a huge honor because being from my era, a little older than you, that was one of the premier things.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we didn't have the internet. You didn't have, you had the A6 poster, which had all the, you would just be like, you'd see Alan Freed on there and Pat Smith and be like, oh, it was just, everything was a little bit, you weren't, things were more like mythical, you know what I mean? Like you wasn't like you see now there's a million tournaments, you see everybody. Back then it was like there was Kolot. He was like a legend, like you know what I mean? You've seen him on the A6 poster and you heard about this guy that was unbelievable. And he was like bypassing everything and just wrestling like in the US Open as a high school kid and placing placing at Midlands in high school, So back then you had the A6 poster, you had, it wasn't Fargo, but you had the junior nationals. And then you had the Dapper Dan, the Pittsburgh Classic. It was a huge thing. So when I talked to Harold called me and said, "Hey, Nikkei is he's got selected to be on that team," and I said, "Man, that's a tremendous honor." I said, "I really, really want to go. I'd love to go because I went out there last year with Miguel, and so that was I talked to Nikkei and I said, "Man, it's a real honor." I know nowadays you have flow, the flow all-star matches,
Yeah.
so there's a few different things, but it really is when you go there, they have a dinner and everything, and everyone's there, and people speak at the dinner. It's very prestigious. And Pennsylvania, the arena's packed, totally
Yeah.
packed with all types of fans that just love wrestling. You're in wrestling country right there in Pennsylvania, and it's a pretty cool thing. It was pretty it was nice going out there with Miguel last year, and I wish I could go, but we just had the baby on February 1st. My wife would kill me if I took off, and because I'm going to Reno, so I'm going to be in Reno for 4 days. That's
Man,
the
I
that's the
hate
week
that
after.
tournament. I hate that tournament so much. I hate going
Yeah,
every single year, man. Because if you have kids in every single session, it's
yeah.
like you're there for four
Oh
days.
yeah, I'm there for 4 days. Um, I gotta go. It's always been a great cultural, cultural builder for my club from
Yeah.
day one. It's um we get to travel there. It's like a home thing. We get in a car and you can travel, but even though you're traveling, it's not necessarily a national event anymore, but it still is very good. You have a lot of kids that will travel there from around the country, so it's a very competitive tournament. It's a great confidence builder for some kids. It's good
Yeah.
for a lot of our kids that maybe have never gone to a Tulsa or gone to a Super 32. They go to Reno and they end up placing there, or they end up doing very well there, and it's a great momentum builder for those individual kids to build some confidence in themselves, going forward. So Reno's great. It's a really good tournament for us. So,
Yeah. I think
and I'm
it's
going to be
great
gone
for
for
the
4 days. So I
it's
have, I
great.
have an
It's
assistant
great for the
coach.
kids.
I have an assistant coach, Coach Alonzo, that helps me out. Does a great job. I used to always be a one-man show all these years, running around like a maniac and pissing off parents because I couldn't be in two places at once or three places at once. But now I have coach, we're texting each other, corresponding, hey, so-and-so's on mat 20. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
over here, and hey, you take him, I'll do it. And it worked perfect last year. I brought him last year and it worked out great. It was such a huge relief. He's been a real help for me.
Yeah, it's fun to share that load a little bit too, but also it's like I don't know how old he is, but um no offense, but I'm sure he's younger than you,
Yeah,
maybe a
yeah,
little bit. But
yeah,
it's also like you're kind of bringing up, the kind of the next generation of guy, and
yeah,
you're also able to bounce your ideas off of somebody too.
yeah, yeah. He's great. And he'll send me stuff on Instagram, stuff we worked on something. Coach, we're working on this, and here's so and so doing it, or something. He'll send it to me on Instagram, and he's there for me. When if I can't make it for whatever reason, I have a family and stuff sometimes, or
Yeah.
if I'm sick or whatever, something happens, he's there to jump in. So he's been awesome. He's a head coach over at Kasner, which feeds in
Okay.
Clovis West.
Clovis West.
Yeah, and I don't know exact age. I think he's in his 30s. He's like low, maybe 33, 34. I'm not sure
Yeah.
the age, but he's right around there, mid 30s to low 30s, I think. Um, yeah. So yeah, Reno, not gonna be able to go out there with Nikkei. I wish I could, but actually Daniel's gonna be coming up here. Zepeda's gonna be coming up. I think staying with Nikkei for about a week and training, I think starting this Sunday.
Nice.
Gonna come up and try to come up regularly. In the off season, those guys come up, Moses and Daniel will come down on Sundays and get some work in with us and stuff and wrestle with, some of our guys. So that'll be fun.
That's a fun room, man. I'm sure when it's packed on Sundays and you
Yeah.
got people from all over.
Yeah, we had one of the Sundays we had, Daniel was here, Moses was here, and then it was Nikkei, and then Toscano was there, and Besmer was there, and CJ Huerta was there, and Rockland Zinkin was there, and they were all going at it. I mean, it was pretty cool.
It's kind of like a party. Like once you
Yeah,
realize everybody's going, it's like, well, I can't not go. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and I think what's really cool too is you're in a really great spot, like geographically.
yeah.
I mean, it's Fresno is not that far from anywhere, so you can get kids
That's a
from Los
nice place.
Banos and Gilroy, and
Yep.
up north in Sac and down south. I mean, it's only, it's within a 5 hour drive.
Yep. Yeah, it's conveniently located, you know, for wrestling. You know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we used to have, epic Sundays when the kids were younger. And I mean, if you look at the pictures, the videos, it's crazy how many D1 million, how many state champions, this and that, all of them, little Estrada wrestling, little event Valencia wrestling, little
Yeah.
Joffrey wrestling, Fig wrestling, Joey would be in there all the time. And obviously Nick Cade at the time was just a little tyke. He was
Yeah.
a little guy. Um, and Rockland was in there wrestling with Jeff Lopez. It's like videos of them when they were like babies. We got videos, and it was pretty epic. But like you said, it's perfect location for people, to come down from the Bay Area, from Oakdale, from Gilroy, Bakersfield. And then, every once in a while, the Bosco guys would come up. Or a lot of times what we used to do was we would do let's say the SUA state tournament or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Then some of the kids, they would actually sleep in my gym. So they'd be like, Coach, they're going to stay for Sunday, because everyone knew how epic Sundays were. So we would
Yeah.
do the state tournament, and then we would have the Dethrone Sunday practice. And the Del Oro
Kids
guys,
would run it back a little bit on
yeah, the
Sunday.
USA Gold, yeah, USA Gold. They used to come down and sleep in my gym. I don't know what type of liability that was, but it's whatever.
No.
They
It
they
was a long time ago. It's
Yeah,
past
a
the
long time
statute of
ago, yeah.
limitations.
But they've slept in the gym. USA Gold used to have that super good, really good young club.
Yeah.
With Blake.
Clint. No.
It was the kid that wrestled at Cal Poly, went to he went to Oklahoma. Ariel, he went to Bosco. His dad was, I think, running it.
Okay.
Who was a kid from Bosco that used to wrestle Renteria and Joey Cruz and those guys? Really, Bosco. Starts with an A. And no, Antonio. No, was it Antonio Lorenzo?
Oh, yeah, he wrestled at Cal Poly.
Yes, Antonio.
Is that
Yeah,
who that is?
yeah, Antonio
Yeah.
Lorenzo. Yep, that's who it was. And he is originally from there. And they had a lot of really good kids.
I need to work on my young Jamie game. It's hard to like talk and then also like try to look it up at the same time.
Jamie, yeah,
Yeah.
you need a Jamie.
I mean,
I don't know if you're familiar with like humanoid robots, but they're going to be coming pretty soon. If you're on X, and
just buy a robot.
yeah, you'll eventually have a humanoid robot. That'll be your Jamie. Tesla, they got this humanoid robot called Optimus, and
Yeah.
then they're bringing in their language model Grok. Elon's got Grok, which is his chat GPT, so to speak. And eventually it's going to be all converging, and people are going to have robots. They're going to have C3POs in their house. I don't ever want to.
Well,
I can't imagine getting one, but
you know what? Like have you ever seen the movie Real Steel with like Hugh Jackman?
I haven't seen that.
The premise is like Hugh Jackman used to be a boxer and now he's a fight manager.
Uh-huh.
But it's like they got rid of human boxers and it's all robots.
Yeah.
So he has to like train robots to fight each other. Like
Mhm.
what if that happens with wrestling? I'm gonna lose my mind. Like
Yeah.
combat sports, they're not gonna want to see humans fight each other. They're gonna want to have these robots fight each other.
Bots. Yeah. I don't know. It's possible.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Elon Musk is super into science fiction,
Yeah.
and that's where all that stuff comes from. And
Yeah.
like he's literally building robots and building AI stuff.
Yep.
I thought about using AI to help edit videos and stuff or
Yeah.
whatever for the podcast because that is honestly like the most time consuming thing.
Yeah.
And I hate doing it, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it doesn't quite work the way that I want it. There is. It doesn't work the way that, I think I want it to. And I end up just having to do it myself anyways.
It'll get there. They're developing these things called AI assistants, like Google and Microsoft. And basically what what eventually the premise behind it is everyone's going to have their own personal assistant, and it's going to know you. It's going to have a personal relationship with you and know, and get to the point where it's like an assistant. Hey, Brian, hey, do you want your coffee? Like, yeah. How'd you know I want my coffee? And, makes it, sets it up, and everything will be hardwired in the house, where, all of a sudden the coffee machine goes, and it's going to be pretty crazy.
I mean, that's such like a big danger when you think about like personal information and like your
Yeah.
stuff getting
No,
hacked.
it's scary as hell.
And
Well,
then
yeah,
what if
also,
advertisement gets access to that stuff? I mean,
yeah,
they have you now. I mean, they do already. I mean, I was
well, I
talking
think they
about
do it
that
anyway. Yeah, they
with
do it
class
anyway.
today. I mean, if you ever talk about something with somebody,
Totally.
like you talk
Yeah.
about say
And all of a
anything, I
sudden it's
bet you
coming
later
out.
it's going to come up
Yeah,
on your phone.
absolutely. Yep. Pops up. Yep. It's listening. Everyone's listening right now.
Have you seen Flow Radio where they used to do like Alien Hour?
Uh-uh. I never
They,
watched the podcast.
they do this was an older thing, but they would have Alien Hour where somebody would just talk about conspiracy theories. I feel like we're getting into that territory, man.
Veering off wrestling. So let's veer back. How
Let's veer back.
about
Uh,
Satya dying?
dude,
Insane, right?
I like what's
He
weird is
just
like I
he
had
he
just
fell
talked
off.
to Al.
He fell off fell
Dude,
out of a
okay,
window,
we're
like
talking about now we're back to conspiracies. You're talking about this guy that's still moving and still
yeah,
active. Like, I don't
greatest
know if he
wrestler of
had
all
any
time.
underlying health issues, but he just
Yeah.
falls out of a window.
Well, they said that typically happens in Russia. Olympic champs just randomly just happen to just fall out a window. I don't know. It's
What the heck?
crazy. I know
I
it's
don't buy
sad.
that.
Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, he was
I need to
incredible.
check the dark web and see if there's
Yeah.
any postings about that.
Him and I
But I mean,
actually we're the same age actually. And when I was living in the 90s, I was living at the training center and used to always go and watch his films, break down his stuff. He was incredible. I used
did
to go.
they have that saved at the training center?
No, it was at USA Wrestling.
Yeah.
So back then, and this was like 97, 98, 99. um, you would just go down to USA Wrestling in Colorado Springs, and they had a whole. Then they were basically videotapes, VCR tapes.
Like a database.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
Well, we would have people go to all the different tournaments. We would physically send people to tournaments back then it was Tbilisi,
Yeah.
and I think it's the Urigan, right? Is it the Urigan now? Yeah, the Urigan.
Yeah.
But it used to be, yeah. We would send we would send people there to record all the matches, so we could do reconnaissance on the top wrestlers in the world. So I used to watch matches of. I used to love watching Adam Satia. He used to
Mhm.
be his brother. Adam was 70, was I think at the time it was 68 kilos or about basically 150. And he was small. He ended up growing and becoming like a 180 something pound or 80 kilo guy. But
I thought didn't was it Buvaisar that moved up so that Adam could take that
yes.
spot or something like
Yep.
that?
Yeah, he actually sat out a year to let Adam win a world championship.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
It's like it's funny you're telling me about the videotapes. That's almost like an intelligence like CIA, but for
Yeah.
wrestling, like go out and record
And they
these
would have
guys so we
everything. They
can
had
study them.
everything like the Europeans. So I'd watch a lot of the European championships, and World Cup, all that. They would have it. You just would go down there and just basically it's like spending, watching tape. Like if you're a football coach or something, you're in the room and just breaking down videos and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I do that because I love wrestling, and especially like a guy like Buvaisar, like who just would just do these crazy things. Like when I found he died, that immediately that's what I did. I went to go look at highlights on YouTube
Oh, he's
and would try to
incredible.
like yeah look at some awesome stuff. Like the way that he would grab people, like
Yeah,
just like it literally seems like he would grab them, like he would have like an arm or a head and grab them and do
yeah,
a flip and pick people up and move them.
yeah. He was just so fun. Like, did you ever watch any of the videos of him and Adam just training? So they have these videos of
Sure, I
a
have.
friend of mine gave them to me years ago, like maybe like 15 years ago. I had them, and they were just hours and hours of them just training and watching the shit they were doing in practice was just nuts. Like spladles and things like that. You know, you don't think that they do in freestyle, like things that you don't think that they know.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Adam just hit this nasty spladle on a guy and just yeah. But I liked Adam because I loved the way he used the underhook. He had a really good
Mhm.
underhook and his inside trip. He had an unbelievable inside trip.
I think the way sometimes you look at certain wrestlers and they don't look like freaks. They don't look like physical freaks.
Yeah.
They look like normal everyday Joes. And this was actually I was talking about this with Carlo. This is kind of his idea. Like those are if they're really good at wrestling, like those are the people you should watch because
Yeah.
they don't necessarily have a lot of physical gifts and they're just figuring out ways to wrestle and be competitive.
They have physical gifts, but they just a lot of those guys are developing functional
Yeah.
strength.
Yeah.
But they're not. I mean, now you see a lot of the Russians and they're very muscular and they look great. But back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of times if you look at a lot of the Soviet wrestlers, a lot of the Russians, a lot of sometimes they would not really look like wow that guy's in he's not lifting weights to look good. I mean, because they're just it's functional strength. They're doing pull-ups, climbing tons of rope, they're tumbling. Like you tell, like the Sativ boys all had, very agile, like basically like gymnasts, kind of,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
it was like I think to quote Dan Gable, like it was like an art to them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was an art. Um, and I think for that, it's like you don't need to be jacked. It's just like spend a lot of time wrestling, and
Well,
like you said, functional strength, climbing ropes.
The Soviet system, everybody mandatory, they went into gymnastics as when they were kids. You
Yeah. And then they kind of sort you out, right? Like, all right, you look like
Well,
you
they
could
would
be a
look at it was kind
wrestler.
of like engineered a little bit, where they would look at your parents and they would kind of just take a look at what they feel like your genetics were going to be, and they would push you towards those areas. So if your parents were 6 feet tall or whatever, father was really tall, maybe they're going to kind of push you towards basketball, volleyball, handball, something like that. And then if they're smaller, then you're going to be looking at gymnastics and so they would I think they kind of would do that. But yeah, they would put everybody in gymnastics mandatory, and then kind of figure it out.
I know who's Arujau's father? I always forget his first name. Vito's dad.
Yeah, it's
But not Vital. I think that's just Vito's full name. But he talks about his experience. Like he was put into soccer, and him and his brother would just fight all the time. And they're like, you guys are done. You're going to wrestling. Like,
yeah,
like you guys fight all the time. Stop."
yeah, yeah.
I heard a story too that like they would try to mash people up to try to create like superhumans. Like, hey, you're a really built hockey player. We got this gymnast. Let's try to create superhuman. You guys are gonna be like,
Well, I think the athletes also they went to different schools. They went to so like you know the male athletes and female athletes would go to the same school. They would that's who they would know.
they socialize with them and get to know them. And
Yeah, when I was in high school, I went out to Krasnoyarsk, Russia. Out there, we were there for a week, and with one of the first, we were actually the only second team to go out there from USA, and that's where they have the Riga now in Krasnoyarsk.
yeah,
And uh, the family I stayed with, was he was a wrestler, and both parents, the father was, I guess, was a volleyball player, and the mother, I think, was like a gymnast or whatever. So they were both athletes when they met and everything. So, and from what I understood, if you were good and you were going to be on like national team or national level, you would be living at like, a complex or whatever,
yeah.
training all the time, going to school. And then the female athletes would be there as well. So,
How'd you end up going on that trip?
so I won the Northeast regionals,
Hmm.
like how they have the USA freestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah. So back then we had the Northeastern regionals. And when I won that, I got selected to be on that team to go out there.
That's
Pretty
pretty
cool.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
What years were you there? I don't want to keep bringing up your age or anything, but
So
I'm
I went
trying to
right
like.
before, well, I'm old. I'm 50, so I'm Satia's age. We're the same age, born in 74. Um, but
So you might have been there Soviet towards the end of the Soviet Union.
yeah, it was actually right before the end of the fall.
Oh
It
my gosh,
was, so we went there in July, and I think it was July, and then I think it fell in August or September. And if we would have
dude,
been there any longer, we would have actually been trapped there. Yeah, it collapsed.
that's
And
wild.
one of the things was interesting, and I always remember this when I went to the Soviet Union. Um, you go to the Moscow International Airport, and it was nice. It was just like any other really nice international airport. So, and that was the airport that most people used. So when we flew in, we landed in Moscow airport, and then we got in a bus and they took us to the domestic airport, you know, and that domestic airport flew us now internally. We flew to Krasnoyarsk, and that airport had, gypsies all over it, like just
Yeah,
run down, was in bad shape. And you kind of know, because it was kind of like there was like a outer shell, like, hey,
yeah,
everything's all right here. Look at Moscow, because they made sure Moscow International Airport looked nice.
yeah.
And then, you went to their domestic airport, which,
Go anywhere
foreigners didn't
else.
really see. And it was, yeah, it was not, it was like half built. I remember there were lots of like people just kind of, poor people just staying,
Hanging out.
hanging out. Um, and people coming up to you, trying to, panhandle, beg or whatever. And I was like, man, that was interesting. Then looking back on it, I was like, oh, yeah, it was right before the fall. Things were starting to kind
Well,
of.
the military tried to take over the government because I always forget it starts with, I want to say it starts with the G. The president, the premier, the leader of Russia, was a little more liberal and was a little more open to trying
Gorbachev.
to, yeah, Gorbachev, through like the glasnost policy, like they're
Yeah.
trying to be more open and like
Problem is,
denuclearize
once you open up a little bit, the people,
the
they knock
floodgates.
down the door because they're like, it's a little taste, you get a little taste
Give them
of.
some freedom. You don't want to go
Yeah.
back.
With that system, they have to have a complete control, because once people start realizing, oh my God, I think I was watching something where Boris Yeltsin, um, he went on a trip to the United States, and he was with Bush at the
Yeah,
time, George Bush Senior, and they went. And he was because he took over after Gorbachev was kicked out,
yeah,
and he went there, and they said he started like tearing up or whatever, and they said, "Hey, what's wrong? What's wrong?" And he goes, "They lied to us." He goes, "They lied to us," because he got to see one of our supermarkets, something that me and you just every day take for granted. Whatever, you go to the supermarket,
yeah,
and for over there, they were telling him, "Hey, this place is terrible. The United States is evil." Blah blah blah. His whole life he was built in that propaganda, and he went over there and he saw the abundance that we have, and it brought him to tears because what he'd been believing his whole life and so proud of was just a lie. Like the Communist Party, you know what I mean? They were lying to him, and yeah, he couldn't believe it. It's so many things like that you just that we take for granted here. And that was one of the things. Like, man, when I was a kid and I went overseas, when I was in my first time going overseas was when I was a 10th grader. I made the cadet world team, and I went out to we went to Budapest, Hungary, and that was really cool. And I
yeah.
wrestled,
That's a very old city.
yeah, and we wrestled in this really small town. It wasn't actually in Budapest, but it was a smaller town, and went out there and first round I wrestled the Soviet. He ended up taking second. I lost him, and of course, drew him first round. And then to get in for third and fourth, I lost to the Iranian. He took the bronze. It was a close match too.
Was there like any kind of shenanigans when you go on these trips, like in terms of like competing, like a language barrier, the food? Because I see like one of my favorite flow films was when they go out to the Yarrigan and like on the pass it says one weigh-in schedule, but then you hear like the schedule's getting changed and you don't know when you actually have to weigh in because there's a language barrier and they keep changing it.
There's a lot of stories. Like I remember when I was competing back in the day, and my old coaches would tell me crazy stories about going overseas. Like Brad Penrith was one of my coaches at Nebraska, and Brad, he was a world silver medalist and world team member several years. And Brad used to tell me different stories how stuff was crazy over in Ukraine, or crazy over in um, different countries and stuff, especially in the Eastern Bloc. Back then,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Um, when I went there, I was really just a kid. Was on the cadet team. I was probably 16 at the time, and everything was kind of structured. It was the worlds and stuff. I don't remember anything being going crazy or whatever.
That's
But
good. It was a good experience then.
yeah, it was a good experience. Oh yeah, great experience. Um,
What about like the wrestling? Would you be in like the wrestling rooms and stuff?
um, what do you mean the wrestling rooms?
Well, like you go on these trips, right? And you're getting ready for a competition.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm assuming you had access to some kind of like
yeah,
wrestling room. And was it, I guess, what was that like?
trying to think back then.
It's not
But
that far. It's not that long ago.
well, yeah, that's 1990. That was like 1990. That was like 1989, 19, yeah, probably 1989. It's kind of a while ago, but
I was -6 back then.
but as far as that, I just remember, honestly, I really don't even remember. I wasn't cutting much weight because I wrestled 167. I remember like I was so light. I should have been at the lower weight. But um yeah, we had a facility there. I remember driving up, and the guys were all playing. They were playing soccer, but they were playing like it was soccer, but like on like an indoor, like we used to play basketball, like a pickup basketball court. They were
Yeah.
doing that, but it was soccer, and it was like they were just playing like pickup soccer. I remember that when we drove up. It was just different. You never see that in the U.S.
Yeah.
There'd always be basketball courts like right there. Um, um, yeah, I remember the guy from India. In India, he won my weight. He beat the Russian Soviet guy. McRae, who was on my team, Kerry McCoy.
Nice.
Um, yeah, Danny Felix. We had a really good team. Brandon Slay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all. It's a lot of the same dudes that end up. You know, it was fun.
That's a big group right there.
Yeah, and then what was cool is we went out to Des Moines, Iowa, to basically the Uni Dome for our training camp. So we went out there for like a couple weeks to train, and I got to meet John Smith. So to me, that was super cool. This was like 1989, and
So
I got John.
he's the man right
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. I used to watch his matches versus Bela Glazov in that All Star match, and try to reverse engineer his low single. You know, we're not as spoiled as everyone is now, where you can just instantly on your phone you have literally all the technique in the world to just study and stuff. Um, but
Like
yeah,
you had to be there, but he was doing camps, I feel like all over the country. And I know at one point he had to stop because he took a loss and was like, I need to get
yeah,
refocused.
yeah, that podcast, the Smiths
Dude,
on
that's so good. I probably watched that maybe or listened to it like once or twice a year,
awesome.
honestly.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I tried to have some of my guys, I coach, like, you got to listen to this podcast because they don't appreciate what John did, how revolutionary, he was for the sport, and how dominant he was, you know.
Yeah, I mean the I feel like the low single was already. I mean, it wasn't like he invented it, but like
He
he
did
was
invent it.
able to take it and
He
make
did
it
invent
his.
it. What do you mean?
I
He
don't.
invented
The
low
people would
single.
attack below the knee, though. I feel like that's not
No,
like a new idea.
no
No one
way.
was attacking
He
before the
invented low
knee.
single. Nobody was doing that. If you listen to the podcast, he tells you how the Russians were just they were going crazy because they were so dominant for so many years, and then John just came with this style that um and they couldn't figure it out.
I
Nobody
think
should
the
he
way
couldn't
the
go.
way he would get to the leg though, and like would be able to, no matter what you would do, he had an answer for. You drape over the top and try to grab one of his ankles. He'll sit on your hand and get his head and his
But here's the
chest
thing
up.
though, here's the thing. That's interesting because see, nobody did that back then. Nobody came over the top and did ankle rolls and things like that. That didn't exist.
Yeah,
So he would come up that low single, boom, he would come up, his ankles would be exposed, and people would just, they'd be on their hands or
they'd
they'd try to
flail
get in
and
the
not
crotch.
know what to
Or they
do.
would chest wrap or they try to get in the crotch, but nobody was coming over and catching the ankles. Cause like right now, if you low single and you just come up and you don't clear your ankles or sit through your ankles so your ankles are clear, guys are just gonna go boom right to an ankle pass.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, yeah. Or they'll grab both your ankles. They'll come up, they'll go to their side and grab both your ankles.
I feel like I don't know if you see this. I mean, how often do you see a low single nowadays?
You don't see it that much. You don't
It's
see it
kind of
that
crazy,
I
huh?
know. It's like an older style that um yeah.
Same thing with like 2-on-1s. I feel like 2-on-1s like used to be such a big trendy hold, and now I feel like it's less common now too.
Yeah. Yeah. What is common now?
Outside steps I feel like are really
You're
popular.
right. Yeah, the outside step, which is a European step.
Yeah,
Of
which I remember Cejudo like doing. I saw a video maybe like 15 years ago where Cejudo was talking about, yeah, this is like the Russian high crotch or something like that, like a different way of doing it. And I remember trying doing it when I was a little kid. I just couldn't I couldn't figure it out.
yeah,
And then I saw Kyle Snyder do it, and then I was like, this is actually seems way easier than shooting like a normal high crotch and having to penetrate with your lead leg
yeah.
that way. You know what I mean? Like having to step.
Yeah, the outside step, I've tried to teach it here and there, and I just never had a feel for it, but it makes sense. It's one step instead of two. So the
Yeah.
reason why it's a much more efficient shot than a penetration step.
To get to the leg, but I feel like it's so much hard. It's you get in the leg in good position, but I feel like once you get there, the other guy has a little more time to react
Mm,
and settle in and block your elbow or try to cover your head. But you're in good position though. If you get in good position and you know how to finish, it's easier to finish.
yeah, yeah. Some of those guys like Chumizo, he's got an amazing and Sinikov. They both got
Yeah.
the outside step high C's the way they set it up. I feel like you got to get a guy in a hand fighting mode and get them hand fighting, and just as they get into a hand fighting mode, they're a little more pronounced to reach a little
Yeah.
bit, and that's
I
when
I
you get it.
I do mine where it's like my lead. I put my lead hand. I go collar tie, and again, it's like what you said. I'm hand fighting. I'm hand fighting. Hand fighting. I go collar tie, and you come up to grab my elbow, and then I bring my hand to my hip, and then my other hand's it's a inside reach. I try to grab
Mhm.
the back of the knee to pull myself in. I know
Yeah.
other guys like maybe it's like O'Toole will go like that wrist tie. We'll go hand, change hands, and step
Yeah.
to it where it's like an outside step, outside hand.
Yeah. No, it's a good shot. Yeah, I've taught it, before I go over it. We do a lot of ducks, which is outside step. Um, we practice it from time to time. Most of my kids, though, I think we're, you know, more penetration step, but
Yeah.
it's something that, yeah.
I do see a lot of I don't know, maybe it's the Dethrone thing. A
Even in
lot of
college,
Clovis area kids trying to do that cartwheel from underneath. Like if their guys maybe like in a spiral ride or
yeah,
they're on a knee and then
yeah,
you grab
cartwheel
and you
over.
inside cartwheel.
Yeah, and Nicade's really good at that. He's really good at that. And Toscano's, he does that as well, from
Yeah.
bottom, dangerous. But yeah, Nicade's great at that. That's why you've got to cover the ankles there. So one of the things where we work on is trying to stay behind the guy and kind of cover the ankles so that they can't get their ankles free, to cartwheel on you and stay in, the Mountain Otas, Bo was great at that.
Yeah.
Anytime and he would get it if anytime you came around and grabbed his hip. So let's say were going behind him like on some short offense, right? You snapped him or you down blocked him, and as you're circling around, instead of grabbing his leg, you cup his hip. He'll cartwheel over on you.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you don't go to the hip. You go butt
Right.
that ankle.
Yeah.
Don't go to the hip. You're going to get cartwheeled on. And
Yeah.
I get so frustrated with our youth kids because like they're developing those fundamentals and they'll be doing it. And I'm like, dude, you need to stop doing this because it's going to work now. But you wrestle somebody that's really tough or athletic. I mean, they might not cartwheel, but they're just going to keep moving. They're not going to give up the takedown, and then you're going to miss your opportunity.
Yeah.
Fun, man. We're already past the hour, and I feel like we could just keep going, man. We could go all night.
Okay, so um we go over, did we sufficiently cover the state tournament? How about
Yeah.
the finals? Was there anything, what were your favorite matches from the finals? And then we can.
Favorite matches. I got a list. I got a list of my favorite finals. I mean, Zinkin, and Sierra was one. I did like the Cortez and Grajeda match. Just because I always forget that Ultimate Tiebreaker is a different rule set.
Yeah,
Like the top guy has no responsibility to turn.
yeah,
So like there's the stalling is different.
yeah.
But it's supposed to
We
be you
don't
drop
normally
down the ankle.
stall,
It's
right?
supposed to
We're
be
supposed to call a stalemate, right?
yeah.
A
Well,
stalemate.
so what trips me up is the college rule now. If you drop down the ankle, there's a 5 count, right? And I know high school normally it's called very similar, but in
Mhm,
ultimate tiebreaker, the first one's a stalemate. It's supposed to be all right. A second, all right, quick stalemate,
mhm.
reset. And if you do it again, then it's supposed to be a stall.
Yeah, okay.
So a lot of people are going nuts just because
Now,
that's
does that
stalling. Why is it not a stall?
stall will then carry, so if you got a stalling call earlier in the match, is that then a point? Or is it a
Yeah,
fresh?
you don't get a fresh stall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So in the ultimate tiebreaker, he drops to the leg. It's a quick stalemate call. Referee's got to recognize that.
yeah.
With dead.
If I drop down the ankle and you
Yeah.
start kicking, it'll be like a 1 count. All right, stalemate.
Okay, and then you reset it, and if I do it again, that's going to be stalling.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Dude, somebody somewhere is gonna be like, no, it's not exactly like that. But I'm pretty sure
Pretty
because
much
I've
what it
talked to
was.
like 3, 4 people and they've all kind of said the same thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how often do you get to ultimate tiebreaker like that?
Yeah. Well, in those matches, in those big time matches, you'll get there quite a bit sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, it's good to know. It's
Yeah.
good to make sure you know that. I need to not forget.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
good. We had two champs. We had Christina Estrada. She won
yeah,
100 and she did great. Jillian, uh, she won it the year before. Christina took fourth and beat Christina. And then this year, Christina, she had been put in so much work, a lot of hard work, and you could see it. And she ended up
dude,
at.
the girls have gotten so much better. Like it just seems like every year they get better. Like the matches are more competitive. Like even the finals, like I remember like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it seemed like every match was like a pin.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And now I think I mean there's just a lot more competition. I think the girls wrestling is looking better. I feel like this always can just makes me trip out, but like picking top, instead of like getting out on bottom.
yeah,
And I'm not sure if it's just because the quality of wrestling is still kind of developing, or if it's like a psychological mental thing or something else. You know what I mean?
yeah. Um, Getting out on bottom is tough sometimes, especially if for some of the bigger girls.
Yeah,
Hold your base and keeping your head up and knee sliding out, it requires strong core. That's why a lot of times you see younger kids, they struggle on bottom. That's one
Yeah.
of the areas that little kids will struggle on bottom because, bottom is, I mean, if you watch college guys, what is it? They tripod up, they're able to hold
Well,
a,
they got a good core. I could rotate
yeah,
my
yeah,
shoulders. I
they
can knee
rotate. Oh,
slide.
you're taking me this way, so I'm going to rotate this way, and then I'm going to come up. I'm going to fight the hands. I'm going to get out. And when you're young, or maybe some of these girls, I don't know, you know, at some of the heavier weights, it's tough to, have
You go sit out. You go sit out. You might get sucked back and might not get off your
exactly,
hip.
exactly. So that could be the reason for that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and Buchanan, man, they took third for the girls, and
Yeah.
they,
Clovis, he's won it with 3 girls.
I know, and so that was good. I was happy for them. And Nick Hayden won it. Tough.
Yeah.
Beating Joseph 6 in a row is.
How like
It
because
was, I was actually, I would ask you this: has there ever been a rivalry in California wrestling where two kids that were ranked in the top three in the nation were wrestling each other that many times, 6 times,
I
have to
don't think
wrestle
so.
each other? It's in California. Think about, like, what are the greatest rivalries going back? You can think of some of the great rivalries where the guys, they went one year, they beat, cross
Yeah.
country.
I mean, it maybe 3 times or 4 times, but the fact that like these guys, their schools are like less than 10 minutes away from each other.
Easy.
Because where are all the times that they wrestled? They wrestled at
Super
St.
32.
Super 32.
I mean, that didn't count towards the regular season,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
first matchup was Super 32 in the
Toscana won that one, right?
Joseph won that one late in the match with a reversal. Um, and then they wrestled in the Zinkin finals. Nick Cade won, and then they wrestled Doc B finals.
Doc B.
Then they wrestled
And the duel.
then they
Valley.
wrestled the Valley. Then they wrestled the Masters, and then they wrestled the
Masters.
state finals.
That's 7. That's 7 times. I
They
mean,
wrestled
6 times during
seven
the
times.
season.
Yeah, 6 in a row and 7 times. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, and it was, every time that Joseph would wrestle him, you could tell that he was learning. Like he was, he was always doing, he was learning from each match.
Yeah.
Because I coached Nick Cade, and we were watching, the Zinkin, he went in there with an underhook, and he was aggressive with an underhook, and Nick Cade was able to, capitalize and hit a high crotch off of that. And then after that, he started learning, more and more, and it was like every match was just different. Every
Well, it's
match,
like you're playing chess a little bit. All
yeah,
right, they're making these moves here, or we have to
yeah.
think 10
And
moves
they're
ahead.
friends, they're friends, and Joseph was trained at the throne for years, and it was tough, it was tough. And Ashley and Anthony, I know the family. I mean, my daughter's with Sophia on their team on Alta, and we're all friends and everything. But it was a tough, it was, hey, they were gunning for the same thing. It was unfortunate, they've never been the same weight or anything before. And this just happened to work out where they were in the same weight. And I think, honestly, Joseph, for the good of the team, was probably going 44s. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he could have made 40s, or 140s. He could have made that weight. I think he could have, but for the good of their team title and stuff, that's how they do it at Buchanan. It's a lot of times certain guys are going to sacrifice their personal goals for the good of the group to try to win that championship. But yeah, I'm glad.
How
I'm
it's
glad,
gotta be
man. Glad where Nicade's going to go on to Nebraska, and then Joseph will have next year, and then he'll eventually go out to Cornell and stuff. So I'm glad that's over.
I feel like just because, we have that shared experience with Miguel and he was getting recruited by Nebraska.
Mm.
Is it hard to not I think we talked about this last time a little bit. I'll ask you again. It's hard to not like be directly involved with their. You want them to be able to make their own decision,
Yeah,
but it's
always.
also got to be cool to know like you coach the guy that's going to be going to your alma
The
mater
kid's
too.
the first one that's gonna go to Nebraska that I've
Yeah.
coached. So it was, yeah, I mean, it was pretty special. And they brought me out there. Harold wanted me to come out when he went out there because the kid took his trip and then we took another trip with Harold. He wanted to see the campus and everything, and I came out
Yeah.
with him and stuff. And I think they kind of knew they were going to commit, and it was a special tip from the kid to have me out there, kind of with him. And because when I first moved out here, I lived with Harold, and Nick Cade
Yeah.
was 2 years old, and that's almost how old my son is now. And that's pretty small. So, yeah, man, it's like the world comes around, and, but, I tell you, Nebraska has got they're doing a great job there. I mean, their coaching staff, for him, it's incredible because he's going to have Ridge Lovett, who Ridge is going to stick around there and
Yeah.
train and everything. So Ridge is going to stay after this year. Brock Hardy has another year, so he's going to train Brock.
James Green is
James Green
training
is
there,
there.
right?
Yeah,
He's
James
around.
Green is there. Coach Schneider.
Dr. Snyder,
Yeah,
Mark Manning.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Coach Manning, Travell is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Travell.
He's very like if you talk to Travell, he's like very highly intelligent guy. Will look and observe and see right away. How to help you, and so he's a great coach. And he had been in communication with Harold a lot. These guys are actively involved. They're not only doing what they got to do at Nebraska, but they're also paying attention to the kids that they're bringing in and stuff. And
Yeah.
but yeah, he couldn't be going to a better situation. I think they're really going to develop him there, and he's
Yeah.
just coming on too. He developed a lot during the season. I mean, if you look at where he was at Doc B to where he finished up in Bakersfield, he did a lot of development physically and everything. So they did a great job, Adam and Gabe too, developing him. I would see him once or twice during the week. Most of the time, he was with those guys during the season.
I'm gonna have to hit him up before he maybe once he gets
On the
settled
thing?
out there. Yeah,
Yes,
get him
yeah,
on the
he'll do it.
podcast.
Sure,
So
quite, yeah. But yeah, he'll be going out there in June. So
we'll be ready for the
yeah,
humidity.
and you know what? You guys sent a good group. Your club came up one weekend. It
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I think
Talking to Trent Tracy, he was.
yeah. He's a good dude. Big
Yeah,
time.
and you guys sent like 20 something kids. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, I think the more honestly, like, I think it goes back to maybe some of the things that we talked about last time is like taking away the ego a little bit and just be like, listen, like you're a good coach, Jason. Like you know that, like we know that, and our kids, like they're gonna benefit from interactions with you guys, and we got some good kids too, and you
But
guys are
also
gonna
just
benefit
get
from
the
that.
kids up there training, get the kids
Yeah,
training together. Yeah, no, that was
yeah,
great.
big time.
You guys need to come up more. Especially in the summer.
Yeah,
Come up
yeah,
and
we gotta make that happen.
yeah,
It's only a short drive,
not
so.
that far. Yeah, it's pretty good. But all
All right,
right,
man. All right.
thanks for
Hey,
having
like
me
I
on. I
said,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
any time. I one more thing before I let you
Yes.
go. Have you ever done? You've done fantasy wrestling before?
No.
Would you ever? Do you know what that is, right?
So I'm assuming it's an NCAA bracket.
Yeah, you pick
Okay.
like your team, and like, would you ever want to be involved in something like that?
Oh man, what do you guys like? Pick one wrestler per weight class or something like that, and they
Yeah,
split.
you do like a snake draft. So it's like you have like maybe 8 or 9 people, and you get picks 1 through 9. So
Yeah.
first pick, and then you get to the ninth person, and then the second round, the ninth person gets to pick, and then you go in reverse order.
Okay.
I don't know, it's fun,
All right. Yeah.
just adds another
Yeah.
layer of excitement.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it. Hit me up. We'll probably do it.
for sure.
All right,
All right,
man.
coach.
All right,
Yeah,
buddy.
you're the
Talk to you
man,
later.
Jason. Thank you. All right.